This video will talk about a little technique and setup for the bench repetition test for the combine training. So as I play the video here, what I'm showing you is how to take the bar out of a rack. So imagine that this athlete is laying down on the bench and that we can see his back as he's getting set up. And what I'm trying to illustrate here is with the shoulder blade. So if I was to draw what the shoulder blade, where about the shoulder blade is at, we don't want that shoulder blade to come forward, because as you can see, that allows his arm to stretch further and go out further, which means the bar is further away from our chest. We want that shoulder blade, which you're about to see, to pack in and pack down slightly. So now we get one visual here. You see how far away his arm is, and he's able to pull it back and down, which now the bar would be not as far away from him when he goes to press. And here's a good example here. You see how high the shoulder is. He's about to depress that shoulder blade, which means go downwards with it right here, which again brings the bar closer, gets it further from the top of the chest. On this side, the bar would have been touching about here, but if we're laying down, the highest point on our body is right at the top of the stomach, bottom of the chest, which is where we want to bring the bar. So now by dropping this shoulder blade down lower, we are able to bring that bar closer to the desired position that we want it to touch as we bring it down. Again, just showing him spreading the scap, shrugging. We want to get rid of shrugging. It's bringing muscles into the mix that we don't want to be taking away from our prime movers. So we bring down. Now we're in a more stable, safe position for our shoulders, and the bar is closer to us, which is going to allow us to lift more weight. And here, just take note that everything you see here should be staying the same as far as not lifting up or moving too far forward as his arms move around it. So everything there is staying pretty much in place as he's moving his arms. So now as we're taking the bar out, find a grip that works well for you. Could be shoulder width, could be thumb grip from the knurling. Knurling is that rough grip stuff on the bar. So if you see here, it's kind of tough to see. This is where the rough part of the bar starts, and he is lining up his thumb with that and then closing his hand after he finds his grip. And that also helps make sure your hands are even. Find the grip that works best for you and the width that works best for you, but it's going to be somewhere in that range there. Now he is working on, look here how he's relaxed. Look at this shoulder blade. He is starting to bring that shoulder blade towards his midline, bringing it together, and then right there, this slight movement of the arm, you can see his arm move this way by using his lat muscle. The lat muscle, which runs right in here, he's squeezing this muscle to bring his arms forward, which just creates a more stable position. So when we lift this bar out, this is an example of a bad liftoff. So these here are called J hooks. Those little hooks that are holding the bar in place. You can see them in each video. Some are higher than others. These are particularly high. The hooks, you can see the bar sits. It's about 1.5 inches from where it clears out, right there, where it is clear to leave the rack. As a spotter, we want to lift this bar only as much as needed to clear those J hooks. So here you see I'm well over the hooks. And what that does is pull his arms out of that position we were talking about in the previous clip. And now look how far away the bar is. As a matter of fact, I will draw a line. Here's where the bar is when we take the bar out incorrectly. Then as he gets his shoulders set, you can see how much lower the bar is. We'll put that line in red. So we're already much lower. We changed the distance away that we have to cover in our bench press. So now you see me pointing. That's for us here on the video. What we want to do when we take this bar out is just barely clear the hook. And the goal isn't to come up. The goal is to more so come forward. He's going to use those lat muscles that we were talking about earlier, and he's going to pull his arms forward, and I'm barely going to lift up and over those hooks to come out forward over, oops, not clear all, over that line on the chest that I was talking about earlier, right at the bottom of the chest, right at the top of the abdomen. So now let's go in green. Let's see what happens when he pulls it out correctly. Good. You see where the bar is, and then here's another tip I'm going to speak upon. When you bring the bar out, don't immediately start benching, because watch what happens here. I bring the bar out, and this is natural here. Your muscles are going to settle in. So look where the bar is, and then for just a second, 2 seconds, you just let the bar sit there and watch it's going to lower a little bit more. You see that? It just lowers a little bit. You let the bar settle. It'll lower even closer to your body. And now you can see here, yellow was bringing the bar out wrong, red was correcting it, but look how much lower the bar is when we take the bar out the correct way. And then again, he's bringing that bar right to the top of the chest, or excuse me, bottom of the chest, top of the stomach, some would refer to as about the nipple line, because it is the highest point on our body as we look at the body from the side. So we don't want to bring it to the top of our chest, because then again we're making the bar travel too far, and we want to maximize that travel time and length of the travel of the bar. So now that we've talked about how to take the bar out, let's talk about the actual movement itself. So I'll start with, when we're on the bench, you want to think of 5 points of contact, and those 5 points of contact are our head being 1, keeps in contact with the bench. Our shoulders being 2, keeps in contact with the bench. Our third being our butt needs to keep in contact with the bench. And then fourth is off screen, is our legs that need to keep in contact with the bench. And there'll be a clip here shortly that shows what we need to do with our lower body. But focusing more on our upper body, let's start then with our wrists. We want our knuckles to be somewhat vertical to the sky, just as we are pressing, as we are laying down vertical. So in this frame, we want them vertical as you're laying down, thinking horizontal to the sky. And what I mean by that is, if we're pressing the bar this way, we want our knuckles here to be facing up as well. Think of it as if we're throwing a punch. A lot of athletes, when they begin bench pressing, their hand will have their wrist here, and their knuckles are pointed back this way, and what that does is it puts the wrist in a compromised position, and it limits our power. And even in this video clip, actually, it looks like this wrist is doing a better job of being vertical than this one over here. But imagine you're throwing a punch. You want to throw that punch with your knuckles and not with the palm of your hand, which is what some people are doing when they're bench pressing. If the power is coming from your body traveling up through the arm, we want it to go right into the bar, which it is here. But over here you can actually see some of that power is going out of the wrist and then has to come back this way, then goes up into the bar, and that's not what we want. We want a nice straight path. Second thing is we want to squeeze this bar really, really tight. The tighter grip we have on the bar, the more muscles we're going to wake up, and the more we are going to contract to control this bar down. We want to recruit every muscle that we can, so squeeze this bar as hard as you can. The other thing is, think about pulling the bar apart. So he's obviously gripping here and here. With this grip, he wants to pull this arm this way. That's not a good arrow there. He wants to pull this arm this way and this arm this way. What this will do, it'll wake up more muscles in your back and in your shoulders. Just like I previously touched on, the more muscles we can wake up and bring to the party, the more of this weight that we're going to lift. we're trying to maintain all of those keys as we're bringing the bar down. Keep the tight grip, keep pulling the bar apart, keeping, like we mentioned earlier, our lats engaged and pulling the bar this way so that we stay tight. And as we come down, you'll notice his elbow stays underneath of his hand the whole time. There's a nice straight line there so that everything is pressing right into the bar. We are inhaling here at the top, filling that stomach, and then we don't need to exhale as soon as we begin pressing up, but we want to do it right around our sticking point, and that sticking point is the hardest part of the lift for us. Some people have trouble here at the top, which is a more tricep influenced part of the lift. Some people have more trouble here at the bottom, which involves more of your chest. But wherever that hard part is for you, that's what you want to exhale through forcefully. Another tip here is to think about pushing yourself away from the bar. A lot of people think when the bar is on your chest, we want to push the bar up, but we actually want to think more like push up. Think about pushing yourself away from the bar. So here in the next clip, had the athlete do this separate from some of the training, so please excuse the Crocs here. However, the tips remain true. Do not wear Crocs while doing your bench press repetition test. But for these teaching purposes, what I'm going over here is the lower body portion of the lift. You'll notice the angle of the feet. So for this athlete, it works best to have his feet behind his knees. So not directly underneath his knees, to be a little bit behind his knees. And the reason why, what you'll see, when his feet are behind his knees, he's still able to push through the floor. So right here, he's not pushing into the floor. Watch the hips, but then he'll push into the floor. You'll see his hips are activated. You'll see they lift slightly. However, his hips do not leave the bench. So during this test, your hips are going to have to stay on the bench, one of our 5 points of contact. Previously, you couldn't see the feet, but remember, it's our head, shoulders, our butt, and then both of our feet are the last 5 points of contact. We want to be able to push through the floor, and we want to be able to use our hips and turn our bench press into as much of a full body movement as possible. If we're just using our chest and triceps, which is what a lot of people say a bench press exercise is working, then we are not maximizing our full potential in the lift, especially when the outcome is for maximum repetition as opposed to just bodybuilding per se. So you'll see if I set up with my feet in front of my knees and I push, for some athletes that might mean your butt comes further up off the bench. And especially if you go right underneath your knees, that's when our butt will come much higher off the bench, as you see there. But if we can create some tension by putting our feet back behind our knees just like this, then I can push into the floor, engage my hips. It's part of the lift, and my hips should not come off of the bench, because again, at a lot of combines, if your hips coming off the bench, they won't count the reps, and we don't want that to happen in this video. Next thing I'm doing here is I am nudging his legs to make sure that they don't move. If his legs are moving, then we're not engaging that bottom portion of our body. So right here, I'm pretty sure I tell him to relax. Yep, and look how easily his legs are moving around. If I hit him, you're only using your upper body. We're limiting our potential in this movement. But if he goes back to pushing, squeezing, and thinking about driving the knees out, his legs should be stiff. Now they're a part of the movement. And then same thing there. That core should be nice, tight, and stiff. Everything's involved trying to make this as much as a full body movement as possible, putting everything we have into the bar. You see the reps here. Lower body is stiff. There's no movement. If your feet are shuffling around or you're adjusting your feet, then we are losing tension, we are leaking energy, and we're not going to maximize our potential in this lift here. And just see a few of the reps here. Again, is tight grip, pull the bar apart, control down slowly, almost pulling the bar to you while you're pulling the bar out. What that does is engage more of the muscles in your back. Elbow stays directly under the hands and pushes straight, pushing himself away from the bar.